Hello, everybody. Nick Tero, Professor of Information Technologies and Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. If you're watching this video, it is because you're probably taking a course that is using NDG NetLab, a virtual environment we use to deliver course content. And I've made this comment many, many times in the past, and that is if you just sit down and do the lab, you probably can get it done in about 10 to 15 minutes. But you're not going to accomplish anything. You'll accomplish the lab, you'll get your screenshots, you'll submit your thing, but you're not going to accomplish anything, meaning that you're not going to learn anything. I strongly, strongly encourage you to deep dive into the commands that are presented to you while you have access to the NDG server, while you can do these labs, after you've completed the labs, or actually during the process of completing labs. Take some deep dive into some of these commands that you may otherwise not see. Just completing the lab, yes, you're going to get done 10, 15 minutes. But if you're trying to accomplish a deeper understanding of the material provided, sometimes a simple command, you can deep dive into it and find some very, very interesting things with that. So with that being said, let's take a look at some of these programs. CEWL is a tool that we use in Kali Linux. It's available on other platforms, so it's a tool we use in Kali Linux to create word lists. Now, word lists are often associated with brute force password attacks. And what a brute force password attack is, or a dictionary attack, is that we create a dictionary or a list of words in a file. And then when we run a particular program, whether it be maybe John the Ripper or Hashcat, we take that dictionary file and we run it through the program and we compare it to hash values from another file. And if we find a hash value that is generated from the dictionary and it matches the hash value from the file, then we know that that word was generated from the hash. But before we can even do that, we have to be able to create those dictionary files. But we also create word lists for other reasons. Maybe we're testing something. Maybe we're testing the strength of passwords and we're randomly generating passwords to compare their strengths. So there are other reasons that we would use to create a list of files. And the tool that we use oftentimes is the CEWL. And what it basically does, if we look here, it's written in Ruby. It crawls a URL. It will also crawl a IP address. We need to be careful with its use because this is one of those things that if we start crawling other people's websites, their intrusion detection systems might have issues with it. So in this demonstration, I'm going to use my test environment, and I'm going to use an example from one of the labs. So let me move this over here, and we have this little test environment, and let's start with CEWL help. And very, very quickly, obviously, it shows us all these help commands, all the commands and all the switches that would be associated with CEW. Let's use the example from one particular lab in which we're going to create a word list. And if we see right here, here's the command that we can type. So let me clear my screen on this side. And let's break this down. CEWL, type it right. -w, and then we give it the file name or the dictionary in which we're going to create. In this particular example, we can use it, straight from the lab. It doesn't really matter. I can create any particular dictionary file that I want. But just to follow this command, OWASPWORDS.txt. All right, so that's the file that's going to be created. So the W just says write to a given file. The -D2, how deep do you want this thing to crawl? The default is 2, but here I specified 2. If I want to really crawl down to 3, 4 depth, understand this is going to take some time. So, we're kind of expediting by just saying, just go down 2 levels. I can say 1 level, I can say 5 levels, but D is the depth in which I'm going to crawl. M5, this particular example is 5, is basically the minimum length of the word that you would grab from this crawling. So it's going to avoid words like the A and the I and the THEs and all the 4-letter words and things like that. Now you could adjust that accordingly if you are working with passwords that might be 8 characters length. Then I'd say, only pull words from this crawl that are 8 characters. Now understand, this is not pulling passwords. This is pulling words from a file that we can use for a dictionary. Because most people, when they create their passwords, they tend to create passwords that are easy for them to remember. They get some sophistication there, upper and lower words, characters, numbers, special characters. But if you were to crawl a high school or a school, you might get mascot names. If you were to crawl a company's website, you might get product names. And people will often create passwords based upon a mascot, based upon a team name, based upon a project they're working on. So that's this doing. This is not crawling and finding passwords. This is just going out and creating a word list that we can use to compare against potential password files. So in this particular case, I'm creating a word list called WAS password, passwords.txt, go to a depth of 2, and minimum password length will be 5. And then I give it the site. Now, I'm going to differ a little bit because I'm not going to use straight from here, but I'm going to use a different IP address because I'm in a different environment, and I'm going to let it run. Now it's crawling a server and it's getting the words that it can find, and it may take a couple minutes. Now, if it took a couple seconds there. Now, if I'm crawling a real website, again, we need to be careful with that. This may take minutes. This may take a long time depending on the website in which you are crawling. And if I just want to see what words are being used, those were the words that were at least, 5 characters in length, 5 or greater, and this is what was pulled from the website. Now, there are other tools we can use. This is a program that was written in Ruby. It's on the Kali machine, and it was written in Ruby. And if I just want to go a little bit deeper dive, maybe can I withdraw something of more interest? So if I go back and I say CEWL -help, give it a second, and if I really begin to deep dive and look at the different features, here is something of interest. It will allow me to crawl and find email addresses, right? May not be passwords, but that's kind of an interesting little tidbit there. So let's do that. Now I'm going to do a little shorthand. I'm going to use history here. And I'm going to crawl, and I'm going to say -E. Give it a little time. Now it's overwriting. I know it's overwriting the OWAS passwords.txt. Yeah, I could have printed it out to the screen, but I just decided, speed things up a little bit. So I wrote it. Now let's OWAS. Let's see what's in there now. You can see what it still went out there, and it still found words that were greater than or equal to 5 in length. But down here, we now have the email addresses that were pulled from that page. And there's variations of the switches we can use. We can say just pull out the email address, ignore words. So, if I do a -N, it would ignore words. So here it again. Again, the CEWL it is a tool that allows us to create list of words. Right? And there's variations to it, but again, it prepares us for other tools. So with that being said, let's go out and learn something.